Hello, everybody. I'm Todd Anderson.
I'm Ross Merriam.
You're watching Versus Live by StarCityGames.com, and today we're going to be testing out the London Mulligan. Now, Ross, do you want to go over what the London Mulligan is?
Yes. So starting with the upcoming Mythic Championship in London at the end of April, WotC is going to be stress testing a new Mulligan rule. Unlike the old one, every single time you mulligan, you're going to redraw 7 cards. But at the end of it, when you finally decide to keep a hand, at the end of that, for each time that you've mulliganed, you'll take a card from that 7 that you've kept and put it on the bottom of your library. So if you mulligan once, you'll take 1 card, still have six to start with. You'll still have 5 if you mulligan twice, and so on. But you're going to have a large number of cards to choose from and a lot more ability to sculpt your opening hand.
Yeah, and I think that this Mulligan rule is going to be particularly useful for formats like Standard and Limited because they allow for fewer non-games. Like, you get more opening hands that have 3 lands or whatever, so that you get to actually play Magic over the first few turns. Much less likely that you actually stumble. You can, in Limited, you can put your 6-drop on the bottom of your deck instead of having it stuck in your hand, And then in Standard, it's much more important that you're able to curve out. So you have that 7-card hand to choose from. You loot away 2 cards that kind of don't really fit on the curve, like your extra 3-drop or what have you. And that allows you to interact as much as possible in the first few turns. Now, this is where it gets hairy. When you start putting this type of Mulligan rule into Modern and Legacy and even Vintage, things start to break down a little bit. We've already talked a little bit about how you're over 90% or something, or 99% to hit a Bazaar of Baghdad with this Mulligan rule.
Yes, if you're willing to mulligan to 1 in order to find it, you're super likely to hit there. And that has implications for Vintage Dredge. Not a big deal for most Magic players, but there are similar effects towards any sort of linear strategy that exists in both Modern and Legacy, where those decks are going to be much more consistently applying pressure to you on the first 2 turns of the game. Their fail rate is going to go down. A lot of them don't need to assemble a lot of cards. A deck like Show and Tell in Legacy, if you just have Soul Land, Lotus Petal, Show and Tell, and your creature, you can just go for it and say, give your opponent the Forcible test.
Yep.
That's only 4 cards, but you're a lot more likely to find that combination when you get to see 7 every time. You put the other 3 on the bottom and go from there. So the prevailing opinion going into this is that this Mulligan is going to make linear decks a lot more powerful. Some people are a little displeased by that, we'll say, especially in a format like Modern, where there's already a wide swath of very proactive and somewhat non-interactive decks near the top of the format. But there's this other side of the argument that says, well, there's a lot of powerful sideboard cards that exist against those decks, and this Mulligan rule also allows their opponents to find those cards more effectively or find their disruption more effectively. When you're a mid-range deck, the classic problem is you have half your deck is good against half the format, the other half is good against the other half of the format.
Yep.
Now, when you mulligan, you just take the card or cards that are bad in the matchup and put those on the bottom, and you're more likely to have a hand that's just filled with cards that are going to be effective. So we're here today to test out whether or not this London Mulligan rule is really going to favor one side, the linear side of things, or the more reactive side of things.
So I think that we're going to be playing both sides today, as in testing out how the London Mulligan affects various decks across multiple types of matchups as well as multiple archetypes. Now, the first one we're going to be trying out Dredge. The Dredge is notoriously great at mulliganing because it needs so few cards to actually function. And once the engine starts going and you start using your graveyard as a resource, you effectively gain card advantage as you go along. Not just actual card advantage with things like Life from Loam, but virtual card advantage by hitting things like Narcomoeba, as well as Bloodghast and all of those graveyard-related things.
And just having access to a whole bunch of cards that are in your graveyard. Now, those cards are effectively in your hand because you get to utilize them. So even though there's a Dark Blast sitting there for 4 turns, it's not in your hand. It doesn't count normally or nominally towards card advantage, but it really does count because your opponent still has to be wary of it and play around it, because on any turn you can replace your draw with that one instead of a Stinkweed Imp or Life of the Loam or some other Dredge card.
Yeah, and now with Dredge implementing Creeping Chill as well as Narcomoeba, the Mulligan rule actually puts those cards back into your deck. And when you have a deck with fetch land, you actually get to shuffle them back into your deck. So it's pretty sweet. You get to see multiple 7s that maybe have like land Faithless Looting Dredger or land Shriekhorn something else or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And like that kind of an opener is ideal, and the other cards are usually just like extra dredgers that don't matter, or cards that you'd rather have in your deck to begin with.
Even a third land is probably excessive. You only need the 2 for life and the loam. There's a lot of cards that you're fine putting back in your deck, and you're actually happy to do so.
Right.
And I would have killed to be able to put Progenitus in the bottom of my deck when I mulligan with elves. That would have been awesome.
Yeah, you could just play Brainstorm in your deck if you wanted to do that.
I thought about doing that.
So we're going to be running Dredge. This is the deck that I think is going to be the most classic example of a strategy that benefits from this type of mulligan rule. We're going to be piloting it against a deck that uniquely actually has a lot of strength to gain from this mulligan rule as well, while also having that potential Leyline of the Void sideboard tech, just being able to dig for that repeatedly. Now, what you're going to see in this matchup, I'm playing Colorless Eldrazi. This is Travis Gibson's list from his most recent regionals finish. I believe he made third place.
Third place in Orlando.
And so his version is going to feature, for example, 4 copies of Serum Powder. And now Serum Powder is this unique card that effectively lets you take an extra mulligan if it's in your opening hand and you don't like your hand. Now, it actually works 2 ways with the London Mulligan. First off, it says if it's in your opener, you can exile your whole hand and draw that many cards again. Now, normally if you would mulligan to 6 or 5 and have a Serum Powder, you're only drawing 6 or 5. With the new London Mulligan, you're always drawing 7, and so Serum Powder is always going to let you see a fresh 7. Step 2 is after you've London Mulligan and you hit a Serum Powder in a hand that's actually pretty good, you just throw away the Serum Powder. You just put it on the bottom of your deck because you don't ever really cast it. I mean, once in a blue moon, you cast Serum Powder into a turn for Reality Smasher or something like that, but it is rare. But most of the time, you just the Serum Powder just kind of rots in your hand. It just allows for more busted draw. So
Honor-Worn Shock You, not really a modern playable Magic card.
Right. Now,
did we bring that one up?
Do we have Honor-Worn Shock You?
Surprisingly, I did not have that one ready.
Come on, Rob. So the Serum Powder works nicely with that. Now, this deck also functions really well off of mulligans because it has Eternal Scourge. Now, Eternal Scourge works really well with Serum Powder. If you exile it with Serum Powder, it counts as basically a free card in exile that you can cast at any point. And now, 3-mana, 3/3, you wouldn't think, oh, that's so good or whatever. But every Eldrazi that gets its cost reduced by Eldrazi Temple has value, especially when you're playing a deck that plays Eldrazi Mimic.
Yeah. You're also playing a deck that doesn't really have sources of card advantage, so an extra card is nice. You know, Simian Spirit Guide will be card disadvantage sometimes. You'll draw some like bad Simian Spirit Guides or Serum Powders later in the game. So every extra card matters. And that one just comes along for free over the course of your normal mulliganing procedure. So
right. And on top of that, we also have Gemstone Caverns that work well with Eternal Scourge. So you're going to see us mulligan quite a bit with this deck and try to leverage not only the mulligan rule, but Serum Powder, as well as the synergies that revolve around Gemstone Caverns, Serum Powder, and Eternal Scourge. So it's a really interesting deck. And without the London Mulligan, it was still very good. Travis Gibson has been...
Sorry, real quick. I'm being told by chat that apparently with Serum Powder, you put the cards on the bottom of your deck before you use Serum Powder.
Are you sure?
I am not, but I have seen that in chat.
I'm pretty sure Serum Powder happens during the same times as mulligans, because you don't keep a 7 and then Serum Powder. You get to mulligan again after you Serum Powder. Okay,
yeah, that would be really weird.
Yeah,
right.
We're gonna pull it out. Reading the card tells you what the card does. Okay, anytime you could mulligan, and Serum Powder is in your hand, you may exile all the cards from your hand, then draw that many cards. I'm pretty sure I'm right.
Well, apparently they're saying that before you decide to mulligan again, you put the cards on the bottom of your library and then you mulligan.
Sure.
As far as the
Serum Powder just like replaces the mulligan though. So like that's the whole point of the card. You know, if you have Serum Powder in your opening 7 card hand, it's not like you Serum Powder to 6, right? You just Serum Powder and draw 7 again. Like the card literally says you may exile all the cards from your hand and then draw that many cards. I'm just reading the card.
Well, no, the issue isn't that you get less cards off Serum Powder, it's just when you Serum Powder.
Okay, so when you Serum Powder, you just discard all the cards and then you draw that many cards and then you resolve the mulligan, right? I don't know, man. Look, can we go get Ricky Hayashi, please? Can he come explain this? All right, we're gonna get Ricky Hayashi, level bajillion judge, has judged multiple Pro Tours, literally just in house. We're gonna get him to come over here and explain how Serum Powder works with the London Mulligan, because honestly, I want to get it right. It's very important that we get it right. So if we have any questions that are not related to Serum Powder, if you have any for us, Rob, please feel free to ask. Okay.
On the topic of the London Mulligan, Papa John's Napkins wants to know, what do you think about implementing the London Mulligan rule only in limited and standard?
I think it leads to too much confusion. I agree with them wanting uniformity across how mulligans work in Magic, and not just wanting for the mulligans not to affect older formats. I get it. It would make sense. But at the same time, for any newer player that wants to get into Magic, having a different type of mulligan for a different format just feels really odd.
Yeah, as much as we're talking about how the London Mulligan is going to affect, maybe make linear decks better, I don't think the difference is particularly stark. You mulligan like max a third of your hands, probably less than that, and then how much does this relative to the Vancouver Mulligan increase your win percentage in that 30% of games? Probably by a couple percentage points. So you're not if that. So you're not adding a whole lot here.
All the judges are at lunch. Okay, great. That's the downside of a live show. Okay, I'm going to clear something up here because I think there was some confusion. I said at some point you can keep a hand with serum powder and then put it on the bottom of the deck. Maybe people thought I meant you could like exile and then put it on the bottom of the deck, but I mostly meant that if you like your hand and you've already mulliganed, the serum powder is dead and you can put it on the bottom. So we're just going to play it how I think it works, and we're just going to go with that. So do you want to draw some opening hands or what?
Let's do it. Well, first we got to roll some dice.
Okay.
You want odd or even?
Even. Stevens. Ooh, box cars. Let's go. All right. So we're
going to a casino this weekend.
Oh yeah. No. I'm having fun on that one. Okay, well, we got an Eldrazi Temple on our opener, so the odds of me keeping are already pretty high. Yeah. The rest of my hand is really bad.
That is probably the card that correlates to keeps more than any other in the deck, right?
Okay, I have to keep my hand. I want to mulligan, okay? I just want to point out I want to mulligan. Not in general, but just to test it out.
My first two cards were these, so this is almost assuredly a mulligan. Yep. Oh, another Narcomoeba?
Oh, yeah. Is that London Calling?
Yes.
All right. We have fun here.
So,
all right.
How badly is that song copyrighted? Can we get that one playing?
All right. So Todd, reading the rule here. Before you choose whether to keep or not, you put the cards on the bottom, and then you decide whether you mulligan.
Oh. Okay. All right. Okay. That's fair. I'll keep that in mind. That does make a bit of sense because with serum powder, it did feel like it was getting a little out of hand. But okay. Any more questions while we're chilling?
So, if you serum powder and say you've mulliganed twice, and you put two cards on the bottom, and you have the serum powder, and then you serum powder into 5, and then you say, okay, now I'll mulligan this. You draw 7 again, and then put 3 back.
I think so. Which sounds really stupid. Although, no, serum powder, you don't draw. If you serum powder, I think you just look at those number of cards again.
Yeah, so you draw the 5.
And then if you serum powder the 5, you only draw 5.
Yeah, but then once you've done serum powdering, you can still mulligan again.
Oh, then you draw 7.
Then you draw 7 and then go down
4.
Pitch 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're already seeing a little bit of breakdown on how the card serum powder works. They're not really that intuitive. Look, I think my way is way cleaner. So if y'all are right about this, they're going to need to have some errata on either the London Mulligan or serum powder.
I'm looking at the announcement right now, and I didn't realize this, but added, I assume a few days after, there is an addendum specifically noting serum powder.
Okay. And it says that I was wrong?
For example, if you mulligan twice, then the third set of 7 cards that you see contains a serum powder. You'll first have to put 2 cards from your hand on the bottom of your library. Then, assuming you still have the serum powder in your hand, you can choose to exile your hand and draw 5 new cards, mulligan again, or keep your hand.
Okay, so if you mulligan again, though, then you draw 7 and then you put 3 on the bottom.
Yes.
Okay, cool. We got it. All right, so you have 7 cards in your hand.
First mulligan.
Let's take a peek at Ross's.
Well.
Wow. Okay. And this is great because these hands are literally unplayable, right?
Yeah.
And so he's just getting more and more shots at playable hands while putting these, and I mean, if he looks at his second mulligan, right? And it still has a Creeping Chill and an Archamoeba, but it has land Faithless Looting. He just puts them on the bottom. It's great.
Well,
Okay, I think we figured it out. We actually just brought in Judge Ricky Hayashi, but I would love you. I'm gonna give you my microphone here. Can you explain how
Watch
Serum
the water
Powder
on the
works
floor there.
with the London Mulligan? Is that something you can do? Just in general. Just tell the audience how the London Mulligan works with Serum Powder.
Goodness.
Okay. All right. You know what? This is just not working. It's
This?
fine.
Well, it's in my glasses.
I think you have it on
No,
upside down.
You do.
just stop.
Whatever.
It's okay. Don't worry about
All right, I'm
Just
gonna
talk
hold
to
it like
that.
this.
There we go.
Hello.
If you
Okay.
want to get a little down, a little closer to Todd, just so you're on camera.
So, with Serum Powder, what happens is you are going to do all of your normal mulliganing first.
it. Okay. So let's say this is my first mulligan, and I have a Serum Powder in my opening hand. Before I use Serum Powder, I have to put a card on the bottom, right?
Right. So you're
And
going to choose your
then-
6.
And then I exile.
Now,
And I draw
yes,
6.
correct.
Okay, so I'll draw 6. Now, if I don't want to keep this 6, I can mulligan again, draw 7, and then I put 2 on the bottom, correct?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, right. That's what I want.
Okay, you want to go again? Wait a minute.
Yeah, because the 6 is really bad. So then
Anytime.
I'll
Okay. Anytime.
shuffle this in and- Pretty sure I'm just right, but it's fine.
I mean, eventually
Well,
you were
chat-
right.
chat with
Yeah.
Yes. So. Yeah, you max and then draw that one.
Uh-oh, my hand is lost.
So you wait. So you serum powdered. You got a new 6.
Right, you get a
But
new
you
6,
don't like-
But then you don't like the new 6. You can
Now you
mulligan
go
the
to
6 and
5.
Go to 5, but you
Yeah.
draw 7 and then you put 2 on bottom.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just so we're clear, Serum Powder is banned now. For being too complicated, it is now going to be banned.
It's confusing.
Oh, this is going to lead to a lot of judge calls.
Oh
No one's gonna play this card.
It literally just got third at regionals before all the mulligan rolls.
Yeah.
Travis Gibson,
Yeah.
classic.
Thank
right?
you, Ricky.
Thanks, Ricky. Okay, so I won the roll, right?
Yeah.
How's your 5? Let's take a look
Let's
at your
see.
5er. I hope Chad is just eating this up.
This one is quite playable.
Okay, put 2 on the bottom.
I don't have any Narcomoebas or Creeping Chills, so it's not easy. We're definitely keeping these 3. And we have to keep this one as a dredger. The question is, which one of these do we keep? And I think in general, the best one is...
I lost a Simian Spirit Guide somewhere. I'm gonna.
It's one of these. It's one of the creatures, I think, because we can hold off on this one.
I don't mean to cheat or anything, chat. When I was fixing my hand, I lost a Simian Spirit Guide that is very important in this matchup.
I'm gonna keep the higher upside card.
Okay, can
Okay.
I start my
Then
turn
I
now?
scry, right?
You do not scry. All right, we're gonna lead with Eldrazi Temple and say
Sure.
go.
Ooh, that was good. The cards I put in on the bottom are good, so I think I'll fetch first. I'm gonna go to 17 and get a Blood Crypt. There's definitely a good chance I want to be casting Stinkweed Imps and or Dark Blast and Eldrazi Mimic in this matchup, so
Oh yeah.
I'll prioritize getting a black source as opposed to saving 2 life. And I will start on... I've gone back and forth on how I like to sequence these cards.
Shriekhorde v Faithless.
Yeah. I often like to Faithless first, because you can hit like Cathartic or another Faithless, just better cards.
Yeah.
But hitting Shriekhorde and like milling over a Dredger is really nice as well.
I think a lot of it depends on how many lands you actually have in hand too. Like if you have a second land for sure, I think Shriekhorde is there. But if you don't have a second land, you
Oh yeah.
always
If I didn't have a
lose.
second land, you're definitely looting.
All right.
But I drew the second land because I'm very lucky.
Okay, we'll name Eldrazi, and then I peeled a Mimic, which is nice. Your turn.
Okay, let's hit the Dark Blast. Second
I know.
main.
Yeah, we do this during second main. And why do we do it during second main, Ross?
Because if you hit the pair of Narcomoeba prized amalgam, then the amalgam will enter on your opponent's end step and get to attack on your turn.
Correct.
I don't have a Dredger, so I will upkeep this Shriekhorn activation. And I've hit Bloodghast, Faithless Looting. So that's a little disappointing to not hit a Dredger. So I'll take a natural draw. And now we'll fire off this Faithless Looting.
I guess if you have a Dredger in hand, you're also gambling, right? Because if you loot a Dredger early, that's actually better than just Shriekhorning, right?
Yeah, it can be. But I did have a Dredger in hand, but it was a Dredge 3. And now I might not even discard it. Because I can get an extra creature into play this turn if I just discard these two.
Nice.
So I think I just want to do that. And play this land, return 2 Bloodghasts.
Okay.
That'll trigger the amalgam. So, didn't dredge at all. Still have 7 power on the battlefield in turn 2 on my Mull to 5.
Oh, yeah. No, this is fine.
You're up.
All right. I'm going to go to 16 and kill the prized amalgam.
So you got 16 to 17.
Yeah. Name Eldrazi again.
Who is the Thoughts here?
Guide. Smasher hit you for 10. Put you to 7.
Okay.
Your turn.
This might be bad. Let's upkeep Shriekhorn again.
Oh, you hit the Narcomoeba.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, no kidding. I was really hoping he wouldn't hit a Narcomoeba.
That is also quite good. Cathartic Reunion, discard Life on the Lone Mountain. First draw.
No!
Second
Get a
draw.
Dredger and a Creeping Chill? Ugh. This is not cool.
Okay, I guess I have to take a natural draw on the last one.
Oh, no.
How unlucky.
You had 2 Creeping Chills, so you're going to go to 13. I'm going to go to 10. Anyway, check it out.
Yeah, that's what I have. So 13 to
This is on Mull to
10.
5. Mull to
That
5.
Narcomoeba will trigger this amalgam. Play a Gemstone Mine. Get some counters on that. Mush you for 4.
I'm at 6.
End step, get an amalgam.
Okay.
Pass the turn. Yeah. Forgot how sweet this deck is.
Did you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, with him at 13 now, I don't think I have a chance to win. We had Sword of Fire and Ice, so if we drew a Spirit Guide or a another Reality Smasher, we had a chance to punch through Narcomoebas, but not the Creeping Chill plus Narcomoeba. And while I'm not dead on the following attack, I'm probably dead. I just have to hold this back to block, I think. Your turn.
Okay. Still no dredgers in the graveyard, so another natural draw.
We just drew another Cathartic or something. You sound so happy. All right, can you kill me quicker so we can go to the next game?
Dredge Day
Please?
needs to come around more often.
I'm trying to figure out the best way to not die, potentially, because I can't. I'm not sure if I can kill you unless I hit some absurd sequence of draws. So I'm virtually guaranteed to kill Todd next turn, which kind of makes me want to play more conservatively. So I guess we can still just start on this. Cathartic, discard 2 dredgers.
Yeah. I mean, if you had a Creeping Chill, I'm dead.
Yeah,
There it is.
well, that'll do. I was kind of unlikely to do that, but
Oh. I mean, you also could just hit a land right off a natural draw and then just cast Conflagrate if you found it.
Jesus.
Yeah. So, new mulligan rule, quite good for Dredge. Step 1. Now, post-board sideboard games. We're not going to take a break here. We normally take a break for sideboard. Just stop, please. You
I'm
win.
not done.
You win. Stop. Jeez. Anyway, so now we're going to see if sideboarded Leyline of the Void against things like Dredge, how easy it is to mulligan to those. Much like Bazaar Baghdad in Vintage, I think if you want to find Leyline of the Void, you're somewhere around 99% to find it if you commit to mulliganing to 1. And now the question becomes like, how risky of keeps does Ross keep in these scenarios? Like, if I just snap off an opening 7 with Leyline of the Void, like, does he need to dig for Nature's Claim? You know, and if he is digging for Nature's Claim, like my range of keeps goes pretty high, I think. So it's pretty interesting. But while we're kind of doing this, if you have any questions from Twitch chat, more than happy to answer them.
Yeah, to get to our usual Hesteus question.
Oh yeah.
For both of you, what were your biggest level up moments in Magic?
So my funny level up story, which was really the first one, was back when I was playing FNMs and just started playing. So my our FNMs that back then were unsanctioned at my local store, and the store owner would just take everybody that entered and randomly put them into pods, and you had to play 3-game matches. You played all 3 games, and your game record is what got you out of your pod into the top 8. But everybody in the store knew that the pods weren't really random. There was always one pod that had that was sort of the pod of death, if you follow the World Cup, that had a lot of the best players in the store, and there was one pod with a lot of the newer players in the store to try to give them a chance and get them coming back. And when I first showed up and started playing FNMs, I was often in the weak pod. And like 6 months, 10 months, a year later, I started noticing that I got put into the ringer pod.
Ooh.
And I was like, oh, I must be getting better.
Yeah.
So that's my level up. I got put into the ringer pod at my FNM.
I don't know. I never had like a big moment of like Magic clarity. I just slowly got better over time because I just played more and more. When Magic Online first came out back in like 2002, I started playing it a lot more. Maybe it was 2003, but I started playing Magic a lot more, and I started, like reading articles and things like that. And I was still pretty bad, but I got better like pretty fast in that time period. I won my first PTQ in 2006. So there was like a couple years there where I was just like pretty bad, and then finally got pretty good. But I don't think there was any real breaking point between those two things. Like, I top 8'd a few PTQs here and there, but it was a slow burn. It was never like one big moment.
I'm trying to bring in a lot of cards here.
That is a lot of cards. I don't know if you can afford to do that.
Yeah. So Lightning Axe makes Shriekhorn expendable, so we can cut all our Shriekhorns because Axe is really good. We need to bring in Claim to deal with Leyline of the Void. That's the basic thing.
Yep.
Dark Blast seems better than another Dredger because you have Blinkball Nexus and Eldrazi Mimic. So this just sort of replaces a Dredger. That's fine. So maybe I can aggressively cut another Dredger. This puts me down 3 Dredgers. That's a lot. Vengeful Pharaoh seems pretty good. It's like a kind of another Lightning Axe. And I think I need some number of answers to Chalice of the Void, because if you Chalice on 1 with a Leyline, then I'm dead. Trophy is an easy one to bring in because it has some other utility. Maybe I'm just not supposed to bring in the Grudge and be like, well, I've got 1 out to Chalice plus Leyline.
Sure.
Maybe, given that I'm bringing in so many other cards, that's probably right. Just to be a little bit riskier. So this is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and this is 10. So I need to bring out another card still, and it really can't be another Dredger. And normally I would bring out a Creeping Chill. I was reading Sam Black's article earlier this week, and he basically never brings out Creeping Chill. He thinks the card's busted.
Well, it is very good.
Yeah.
Cutting a lot of Dredgers, though, is just going to take away a lot of the strength of your deck. And this, I think, is you're kind of like overboarding. It feels like
Dakmor Salvage is sort of like an extra Dredger that's kind of free and easy to trim. Like Life in the Loam versus Dark Blast is sort of a wash. So I'm really just down 2 Dredgers, which is about the max that I want to be. I think here I have to either cut another Bloodghast, which is a creature I usually cut against decks that have a lot of ground creatures because it doesn't attack as well, or cut 1 Creeping Chill. Is probably where I'll be.
I mean, I think you just kind of overwhelm me over time with a bunch of ground creatures. So like,
yeah,
I would personally
also have more removal to get through. I know.
Just trust your gut. I mean, Sam's smart, but you've also played a lot with this deck.
Yeah, I'm just gonna trim a Chill. It's a little bit lazy, I think, but This is a tough matchup to sideboard for because they have a lot of different things to worry about.
All right. Any questions while we're shuffling up?
Excuse me. Spark Trooper wants to know, what do you say to the reactions that Modern is broken right now?
I think you have a couple good Faithless Looting decks, but I mean, just last year we had a couple really good Ancient Stirrings decks. The year before that, we had a couple of really good Thoughtseize decks and a Noble Hierarch deck that was overpowered. Like, people are just going to clamor for bans whenever something is starting to get really good. I think that having a deck like Arclight Phoenix Izzet at the top of the food chain is a good thing because it's weak to big mana decks. And it plays like pretty fair most of the time. Like, obviously it has some busted draws where you turn 2 thing, turn 3 transform, bring back multiple phoenixes while killing a creature your opponent plays or something like that. Like, those draws are great, but like, they're few and far between. If people just started putting more Dismembers in their deck to kill Thing in the Ice or Twisted Images or
Fatal Push
or whatever, like, just stop playing Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt sucks unless you're playing Phoenix, you know?
Yeah, there was a post on Reddit analyzing the results from regionals, and it broke it down by some of the staple cards to see their penetration into the top 8s, and Fatal Pushes just seems so low. I do think Izzet Phoenix is reaching numbers now that are ahead of any of those decks that you mentioned over the last couple of years. I think it's at the level, like the peak level of where Shadow was when people were still figuring out how to combat that deck.
Yeah.
So we've got some time before we really need a ban, and there's a lot of things that are happening to Modern in the next couple months. But
yeah. I mean,
Izzet Phoenix is starting to get there.
People wanting a ban are, to me, it's just kind of ludicrous. If you ban Faithless Looting, right, you literally kill 5 decks. Like, they just don't exist anymore. You invalidate thousands of people's collections, you know, and that, to me, that's not cool.
How do you feel about Modern's ability to self-correct as well?
I mean, for the most part, okay, the only time that in the last couple of years that I've wanted a ban, right, was Ayavugan. I actually wanted Eldrazi Temple gone too, because that it's not fun to get hit with a like turn 2 Thought-Knots here. Like, it's just miserable. And Ayavugan, but on top of Ayavugan after that, like, I thought the only card that I thought should be banned was Ironworks, because it stole the time in a match more than any other card that I've seen in a very long time. Very much like Eggs did, where even if they're not killing you on a lot of their turns, they draw like 15 cards, spend 10 minutes, and then you're probably dead. And if you're not dead, then you're dead on the next turn. So you have like 1 turn window to kill them. But like, for power level reasons, I haven't seen a card since like Treasure Cruise or Dig Through Time that really needed to be banned, you know, or besides Ayavugan,
yeah.
you know. So, I mean, Faithless Looting, obviously really good. Ancient Stirrings, obviously really good. Mox Opal is just like a level ahead of both of those, I think. And the fact that like right now it's just Faithless Looting's the end card or whatever, like, you know, just, I would much rather unban something than ban something. And with a new set coming out with a ton of reprints, just wait. You know, if you get beat by Phoenix a couple times in the next few months, great. Just wait for Modern Horizons. Yeah. You know, even if it doesn't fix everything, it'll at least give us more stuff to play with, more stuff to talk about.
Yeah, we've got way too many variables now to act too soon. And Izzet Phoenix has gained a lot out of the fact that people confuse it to be this non-interactive, quote, unfair deck, when it really is operating at a fair level. It's just really powerful. So look, you can easily mistake it for that. But when you mistake the deck as being linear, then you try to sideboard hate cards that completely shut it down. And the only one that really comes close to doing that is Chalice of the Void.
Yeah.
Things like Damping Sphere or Graveyard Hate are just not consistently effective against the deck.
Yep.
And I really think everybody should be attacking it from the generic, you know, removal spells and good threats level, which is another reason I like this deck. You know, like, yeah, you have Chalice of the Void, but in this matchup you also have 4-mana Nick Dismembers and cards like Reality Smasher and Thought-Knot Seer that are great against Lightning Bolt. Thought-Knot Seer is a really good card in this matchup.
Yeah. I actually don't think that this deck should be playing Eldrazi Mimic, honestly. Like, the fact that you're exposing yourself to Lightning Bolt at all, to me, feels a little unnatural, but you do have Chalice to shut that down. Anyway, I want to talk about this opening hand. So let's pan down here, because this hand is really, really sweet, but it's just fun to discuss. So, Leyline of the Void against Dredge. Obviously, this is like, it feels like a hand that's just like, well, it's Leyline, right? Ross can just mulligan to Nature's Claim, and if I don't draw a second mana source, I can't cast the Chalice of the Void, and there's a chance I just lose. Now, if I use Serum Powder, I get a fresh 7. I also get a free Eternal Scourge, and then I can choose to try to find a ley line with a better hand. So I think even though this hand has a ley line in the opener, and if I draw a land in my first draw to Chalice on 1 on the second turn, I think the game ends on the spot unless Ross has a turn 1 Nature's Claim. So I'm going to mull, but I don't know if this is right.
I'm just interested in what the odds of you hitting a ley line on this next 7-card hand are. And you're in a 53 left.
All right. Well, this hand is not good. It's 6 lands, which I was kind of afraid of. I do have a Scavenger Grounds, but we're going to go to 6. But we still have the Eternal Scourge in Exile, so we kind of still have 7 cards, even if we're mulliganing. And that's kind of why I felt like mulliganing the first hand was okay. One thing I'm not a huge fan of with the London Mulligan and with Serum Powder in general is that there's a chance you just spend like 5 minutes mulliganing at the beginning of each game that like you're digging for a specific sideboard card like Leyland Void. All right.
You also create these game like a lot more decisions there before cards hit the table. You're about 35% to have a ley line in that 7.
All right, going to 5. That hand was Gemstone Cavern, Simian Spirit Guide, 4 creatures.
I'm keeping my 7, by the way. If you can see this, it is missing precisely 1 piece, but it's the easiest piece to find, and it has literally everything else. And if it hits, this hand is essentially ideal.
Okay. All right. This is my mold of 5, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Well, perfect hand.
That's only 6, right?
Oh, yeah. Even better.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll put these 2 on the bottom. Start with the ley line.
Pre-game effects.
Temple, go.
I will shock to 18 and pass the turn.
Okay, so we're going to get hit with Nature's Claim. So let's go ahead and Thought Not Seer you.
Let's claim this in response.
Yep.
And
So I'm at 20.
show you a hand that's pretty Thought Not Seer proof.
Yeah, I mean,
I was missing a second land and I drew it immediately.
so here I kind of just want to take Prized Amalgam, actually. But none of these options are ideal. Cathartic actually leads to the most busted draw next turn, so I think maybe just take Cathartic.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Your turn.
Okay, so now it's Faithless Looting and hope to draw another looting.
Now, just for the record, we actually could have kept a second Leyline of the Void, and in this scenario, it might have actually been worthwhile over this Eternal Scourge because we had Thought Knots here. But I wanted another threat to go with turn 2 Thought Knot, turn 3 Eternal Scourge, but we drew a Smasher. But I think double Leyline there would have been really strong.
Huh. So there's the decision point here. I'm definitely discarding 1 imp. Is whether or not I want to.
Come on, buddy.
This is exiled. This isn't my graveyard. The decision point here is whether or not I want to maximize my upside for this turn or maximize next turn. And I think I'd rather make sure my next turn when I'm flashing back this looting is really good. So I'm just going to. I guess I get to discard 3 anyway. I don't know what I'm thinking because of Lightning X. So let's just discard 2 imps. We'll play this land. We'll axe a Thought Knot, discarding Amalgam. And we get to draw a card when the Thought Knot dies, and we will dredge an imp with that.
Yikes. Yeah, so if I had just kept a Leyline instead of a second Eternal Scourge, I think we would have won this game. So that was just me kind of playing a little too fast. Okay. That's not cool. All right. I'm going to spend 6 and play 2 Eternal Scourges. Let's say go.
Okay, so now I get to dredge an imp for turn. Oh, that's a way to deal with Eternal Scourge. So that's cool.
Ah, Vengeful Pharaoh. Because it doesn't target, right?
Correct.
I mean, I don't think Eternal Scourge is very good in this matchup. You can just block with Prized Amalgam.
Yeah.
Deals with it too. All right. I cannot win this game because of the things that have transpired. So please kill me.
You go to 14.
I'm at 20, actually. I don't know why you think I've taken so much damage. You've dealt me no damage and you gained me 4 life.
Why did I have you going to 18 and then me going to...
have
I
no
don't know
clue.
what I've written on this.
I was at 24 and you were at 20, but you fetched probably with Stomping Ground or Shocked
Yeah.
or something with
Yeah,
Stomping
I have
Ground,
18 to 20
so- Okay.
after the attack.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know what I just don't even know why I had the numbers that I had written down. I'm going to go to 15.
Okay.
And get a Blood Crypt. And might be being a little cavalier with my life total here. Maybe I'm supposed to leave back this Amalgam, but my next 3 turns are going to be really good. So,
You just flashing back a looting.
yep.
Also, just a heads up, Pharaoh does target.
Maybe it triggers and then targets.
Oh, wow. That is not how I thought that card was worded. Whenever combat damage is dealt to you or a planeswalker you control, if
That's
Vengeful
actually
Pharaoh is in your
insane
graveyard,
against Eternal
destroy
Scourge.
target attacking creature, then put Vengeful Pharaoh on top of your library.
So what it does actually, it targets every creature that hits you, and then you choose which one resolves.
No.
Are you okay? No, if I hit you,
It's
look,
combat damage is dealt to me, and then I get to target one thing.
that's just not true. It's not true.
Because all the damage is dealt at one time.
No, you just stack how you want to. You stack it how whatever creature you want to kill goes on top. It's really stupid. It's one of the worst templated cards in Magic.
That would be horrible. What?
It is horrible. You're right. But what it does is actually just deals with these, which is really stupid. Like if next time I'm going to play Smasher and hit you, right?
Yep.
And you literally get to exile both Eternal Scourges and kill my Smasher with a single Vengeful Pharaoh. Yeah, Creeping Chill, nice. 18
Well,
to 17.
Oh, yeah, even if it's not there. So let's dredge 2. We'll discard 2 imps because I definitely want to leave the loam in my hand. Resolve this. So you're going to go to 17, and I'm going to go to back up to 18.
Yep.
Did not hit any more creatures to bring back, so I'll pass the turn.
All right. Hit you for 11, put you 7.
7.
Vengeful Pharaoh's going to exile both these and kill this.
I'll go back on top of my deck. Now you get to dredge 5 more.
All right. Let's play a third game. You win.
But I'm not done.
Seriously. Let's play another game. It's fine. My ley line, I should have just put both ley lines on the battlefield because the way that Dredge and Legacy deals with ley line is Echoing Truth usually.
Or
And
Reverent Silence.
I'm so used to just only putting in one and then brainstorming the other one away.
Turns out you were wrong on the way that interacts with Eternal Scourge as well.
Cool, man. You said it targeted, so whatever.
So I was right about the way...
It's because it has an intervening if clause.
All I know is that
No, but once Eternal Scourge gets targeted, it gets exiled. So he's saying that, like, even if the intervening if clause isn't met, it still gets...
targeted, and
Sure.
the target exiles the
Where is the
Eternal
word? Where is the
Everyone's
word target?
telling me it just targets once. Triggers and targets
Yeah.
once.
It's
Just-
the word target comes after the intervening if. Can we get Ricky in here again?
I refuse to get Ricky in here again over this. I'm just gonna say that
No,
should've-
this is actually like an incredibly confusing interaction.
yeah, but we don't have time for this, man.
Sure we do. We have time for everything.
I want to test the London Mulligan, not the rules knowledge of Ricky Hayashi.
We can do both. Just get him in here.
Okay, well, we're gonna take a short break here. I'm gonna go get Ricky, and I'm gonna take a bathroom break, and then you can ask Ricky these questions. But we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Okay, so we have consulted with Judge Ricky Hayashi, and his ruling is that even if multiple creatures are attacking and dealing damage in the same step, so no first strike or double strike involved, then the Vengeful Pharaoh will only trigger once, which is what I initially thought. So in the Todd's last attack, I would have only been able to remove the Reality Smasher. I would not be able to remove the Eternal Scourges.
Okay.
Because it doesn't target a creature until the trigger goes to resolve after the intervening if clause.
I have literally never heard of a trigger choosing a target as it resolves or after it resolves.
Well, like it only sorry, not as it goes to resolve. It'll choose the target after only if the clause in the intervening if clause is met. So it doesn't target the Eternal Scourges after the Reality Smasher puts the Vengeful Pharaoh on top of your library.
Okay. Okay.
That is
rules.
Okay,
not a well-worded Magic card.
We're gonna play another game here, where we're gonna keep testing out the London Mulligan, and see how that goes. I guess.
Maybe you'll keep 2 ley lines again because that's basically unbeatable.
Yeah, I have 2 serum powders. We're gonna start with Mulligan this, even though we have Temple and some other stuff. 2 serum powders is just useless. So.
I don't have any red cards, so let's try again.
All right. Well, we have a Reality Smasher and a Ley Line of the Void and a Spirit Guide, but this hand is not that good otherwise. But I think we just keep it because we have Ley Line of the Void and just kind of hope that Ross doesn't hit. Okay. Yeah, we'll keep. This deck got a lot of Ghost Quarters in it.
Gotta blow up people's lands. Ghost Quarter can be surprisingly effective against Dredge.
Draw 7. What are you doing? London Mulligan. How's your 6? Quote unquote.
So this hand is both slow, needs a second land, and doesn't have an answer to a ley line, and that's too many issues. So it was a 1-lander with Cathartic and Lightning Axe, didn't have more than a Dredge 3.
All right, honest question time. Would you mulligan this hand? Because this hand does not inspire. What's the Marie Kondo thing? Does it
Spark joy?
Does it spark joy? This hand does not spark joy. It's a pretty weak 7 with a ley line, so it's really just like ley line's great, right? That's like step 1, but this 6er, oh boy, it's bad.
I think if you just have so many good draws over the next few turns, though.
Yeah, and we did get 2 Serum Powders out of our deck, but we also got an Eldrazi Temple out of our deck, which I'm not happy about. Ley lines off the top are dead. I don't know. We're keeping it, and we're doing this, but how's your 7?
So this hand can answer a ley line.
Great.
But it does not have any way to get the engine going. It does have, potential blocker for a creature. We're already on 5. If we find a Cathartic or a Faithless Looting, this hand gets really good. So on 5, I think it's a keep, and we just ditch the amalgams to the bottom.
All right. Let's lead with Gemstone Cavern. Your turn.
I mean, it's only missing 1 piece, and for a 5-card hand, I think that's good enough.
Yes, you put 2 on the bottom and you drew another one. The classic London Mulligan bug. Hey! All right. Your turn.
Okay, I'll go to 17, put you to 24.
Great. So the thing I'm learning is that it's very easy for Dredge to find Nature's Claim to kill my sideboard Ley Line of the Void. And mulliganing to Ley Line no longer really matters. Great. Good news.
Everybody wanted to say that all these decks can just find their hate cards. It's like, well, the linear decks have answers to your hate cards, and they get to find them readily too with the new London Mulligan.
Yeah.
The only place where the symmetry is broken is in game 1 when you don't have hate, and their deck just never fails.
I'm not a huge fan of Ley Line. I kind of just wish these were Grafdigger's cages, because if I just was able to play a cage on 1 and then a cage on 2, I'd be in a lot better shape right now. Also, I kind of also want to blow up your lands, but I know you have mountains, and you can keep playing Magic after, so we'll just say go. And he's going to play Stinkweed Imp, and then I'm going to stare at him with this Reality Smasher next turn. Actually, hold on. No, that's fine. Go.
I will go to 14 and get another Stomping Ground and play a Stinkweed Imp.
Okay.
You can go.
All right. Well, I'm not going to tackle the Reality Smasher this turn, so I'm going to Cavern on Ape. I'm going to play a Simian Spirit Guide. And I could have done that last turn, and I thought about doing so, but we chose not to.
Should be keeping my graveyard. The Mire is exiled from that ley line.
Sure.
So these are the kind of weird games you keep when you mulligan with Dredge and had to deal with a ley line early. Don't have much going on. This game's going to go on for a while.
Yeah, but Stinkweed Imp has really shown off how pretty good it is at just playing defense.
Yes.
Especially against these giant Eldrazi.
Ooh.
Let's Thought Not Syria. We will take Prized Amalgam, considering I have no artifacts and enchantments left that I want to target.
I'm gonna blow up your whatchamacallit.
My Serum Powder?
Yeah.
You got me!
Oh,
These
God.
anemic games, I think, actually favor Dredge in the long run, though. Yep.
Helix you.
17 all.
Near 21 from the
Oh,
flame.
right, yeah.
17, 21. Pass the turn. Blocking Thought Knot Seer is kind of cool because I get to immediately put the imp back in my hand, although that could run afoul of a second Thought Knot Seer. So maybe I have to be careful about that. But I should be able to hit like more dredgers. It's probably still worth it. If you attack with one creature, I'm trading.
I know. So the thing I want to do, though, is knock you off of black. I want to like attack with a bunch of things and then knock you off of black mana, so you can't dredge and replay. And if you just miss a Faithless Looting off the dredge 5 or like a good dredge turn, like you just can't replay the Singuin Imp to block. So if I play Smasher and hit you for, let's see, 11 -2, if you block the Smasher, you'll probably block the Thought Knot though. Take 7, you'd be at 10. All right, just gonna wait one more turn. Play Cavernon, Eldrazi. Your turn.
Yeah, I don't think you're in much of a rush.
No, but I mean, you draw out of stuff pretty well.
Well, this has been awkward. I got the other green source against Ghost Quarter to try to like keep green, and then I drew a bunch of Copperline Gorges. I still think I should be playing lands here because I'm going to need to try to play multiple spells. Now I can hit, I can dredge when I
Pop your
block
Blood Crypt.
and hit Faithless Looting into Faithless Looting into Conflagrate, which is nice.
All right, whatever. Attack. Now he can take 12 and block this and draw a card. Well, he gets to basically block, it dies, and then he draws a card, so he actually gets to dredge 5 and put it back in his hand. If he has black, he can replay it next turn, but that might not be enough.
Okay.
If he has lightning axe here, that's pretty bad for me, actually. I think how the chips kind of fall the next few turns.
So the issue with blocking Thought Knot Seer is it puts me exactly to 5. So like the Smasher is potentially lethal, but it does get me deeper in my deck. I have Creeping Chills left.
Yeah, but if you block Smasher, you're going below that, right? Because you take
yeah.
11, 14, down to 3 because of trample.
Yeah, so I should just block the Thought Knot Seer.
I think so.
So I take 12. I
I guess you could block Mimic, but there's a chance Mimic is just not good anymore.
I also have multiple Dark Blasts left in my deck that can potentially deal with that.
But you don't have black.
I'm dredging a bunch. We'll see.
Okay.
That's awkward. This has not been a good dredge.
All right. Did hit an Archimedes.
Yeah, no other dredgers, though. No lootings. That is a problem. I mean, pretty much need to hit... I need to hit a red card. There's a lot of red cards that'll do something. And that is not a red card, so I am dead.
Okay. So here's a lesson to be learned from this game. Ross kept a hand that was a bit anemic, but it had an answer to Leyline of the Void. I had Leyline of the Void, but I was a bit anemic, but my deck functions way better off of being anemic than Ross's. I have just like a bunch of creatures that all kind of functionally do similar things. They're just big monsters that attack and block. He did have a Stinguin Imp that bought him quite a bit of time, but I was able to just draw some creatures, and he didn't draw his red cards that allowed him to kind of draw out of it. His Cathartics, Faithless Lootings, or even Conflagrate there would have been fine, just like killing these two.
I was at 5, and Conflagrate, I would have had to. I couldn't have won with the Conflagrate.
Sure,
because I only have 4 cards in hand.
Anyway, so game 1, let's recap. All right, so game 1, you mulled the 5, but the London Mulligan basically made it so your 5 was nuts, I think.
Yes. I just put 2 Oh, I put the hand was just good overall. I put 2 good cards on the bottom, but I got to keep like the 5 that were better in my opening hand.
So on average, you play a lot of Dredge, right? And out of your 7 card hands that you keep, or even the 6 card hands that you keep, how often do you think there's like 1 or 2 cards in your hand that just don't matter for the majority of the game?
Like 70% of the time.
Right. And I think the London Mulligan really benefits in that scenario because you're putting those on the bottom and actually can actively enable some of those cards to become worthwhile as the game progresses.
Yeah.
Putting a Creeping Chill, Narcomoeba back into the deck with your fetch land mana base is really strong.
It feels like the London Mulligan is designed for Dredge, for modern Dredge in particular, because it is the card that actively wants to put certain cards in its library, can mulligan very low and operate very effectively if it has the right pieces. It is legitimately perfect for Dredge. And we saw I was able to find answers to Leyline very easily. We just lost this one double Gimp game in game 3, and that's going to happen still when you mulligan. But I wasn't ever cold at the Leyline. I beat it easily in game 2.
Yeah. Well, if I had kept double Leyline, which I should have.
Yeah,
that was a pretty big mistake. My hand. So after I put the first Leyline on the battlefield, I put 2 cards on the bottom. I'm left with 3 cards. Those 3 cards, or what was 4 cards? I don't remember. Anyway, it was Eternal Scourge, Thought-Knot Seer, and double Eldrazi Temple. It was literally just like the stones. But what I should have recognized is that the second Leyline of the Void gives me more insurance against Nature's Claim or whatever. And the Eternal Scourge, there's a good chance it just doesn't do anything because I have turn 2 Thought-Knot Seer as well as an Eternal Scourge to be casting from exile already thanks to the Serum Powder.
Oh, yeah.
So I should have just 100%, it was me just like, I don't need the second Leyline. Like the thing you always do in Legacy where you have Brainstorm or you have ways to turn that card into other cards. So now I was turning into an extra resource when really the second Leyline would have been way better.
Yeah, especially with Thought-Knot. Like you think worst case scenario when you have double Leyline, they have 2 Nature's Claims in their hand, but you have Leyline on the play. I claim it. If you're playing turn 2 Thought-Knot Seer, you get to take that second Leyline before I cast it. Suddenly I have to find a third.
Yeah.
And you have pressure.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be really, really hard to beat. So we did see the post-board games really help you find your hate cards.
Yep.
And yes, I can find my answers to hate, so that's a response that the linear decks make. But when a sort of fair deck and an unfair deck are both down several resources because they've been digging for hate card or answer to hate card, and then they've traded those 2 things for each other, so we're down to 4 or 5 cards apiece, your deck is going to operate more efficiently than mine because my deck is built to operate with the synergies put together, and your deck is built to operate on an individual card-by-card basis,
right?
Or at least built more effectively to do so. And so, those trades, they're going to happen consistently because both players find the thing they're looking for, still do favor the fair deck. So that is, a slight edge in your favor, but I do think the bigger gain is in game 1s. There's diminishing returns. You're pretty heavily favored as Dredge or some other linear deck in game 1s across the field. But one of the reasons that I think Dredge hasn't been as dominant even post-chill as it was with Grave Troll is the fail rate on Dredge is still pretty high.
Yeah.
To add chill in the deck, it gives you all these cards that are more cards that are bad in your opening hand. You had to trim a Dredge or trim a land. Those are both things that have a small impact, but an impact nonetheless on your consistency. And that fail rate is one of the reasons that you can beat Dredge. And if they fail in game 1, you're really far ahead to win the match. It's one of the easiest ways to win. But now their fail rate is going to go down. That's going to help them a lot. But you're going to be able to interact more profitably and win games 2 and 3 because you found your sideboard cards in a reasonable time frame.
Sure.
So who wins on the balance? Hard to say. I still think it's Dredge, but
I still think it's Dredge too, and I think that we got into a lot of the corner cases very quickly. The how often do you keep double Leyline if you're mulliganing to find Leyline, because then your draw may be a bit stunning. How often as the Dredge pilot do you mulligan for a good opener plus an answer to Leyline? And if the answer is like you can't keep a hand that's literally just like land Faithless Looting Dredger because you just like can't be Leyline, like there that I think that actually just incentivizes some really negative patterns for mulliganing, which I don't really like. And and that's just initial interpretation, but also I may be slightly biased because that's what I initially thought anyway. And we're gonna have to keep playing it just to see how it feels. Now, honestly, we're probably not gonna do this like a ton, right, on versus live. But I wouldn't mind for at least today and Thursday to just, even if we're not specifically testing out the London Mulligan, to just continue playing with the London Mulligan just to see how it feels.
Yeah, no, I'm in for that as well. I do agree with you that that now that your opponents are finding their hate cards more effectively, it does make mulliganing with Dredge a lot harder. Historically, I've YOLO'd a lot, keeping a 6-card hand that is just a good game 1 hand, because like how often are you going to mull to 5 with Dredge and find 2 lands, an enabler, a dredger, and an answer to hate? You're probably under 5% or something to find the perfect 5. So that you keep a lot of 6s or 5s that are missing exactly one piece. That's what I did in game 3. I was missing the enabler, but if that piece that you're missing is the answer to hate, that might be now the piece that you have to weigh the most heavily, because you're going to be facing these cards more often. That said, Leyline is not a super popular card. If Dredge doesn't pick up in popularity because it can be suppressed by that, maybe you end up in a situation where people are still relying on Surgical Extraction, Relic of Progenitus, cards that you can more easily play through, so you can keep those linear hands anyway. Right. If that's the steady state that we end up in, with Leylines popping up if Dredge gets a little too popular, and that being a sort of metagame aberration that pops up every now and then, that I'm perfectly okay with. But if we end up in a steady state where Dredge is still so good that people play it, and then everyone else plays Leylines, and that's just every match, that would be horrendous.
Yeah.
But
I mean, to be fair, like it was starting to be similar to that when Golgari Grave Troll Dredge was a thing. So I'm not sure that the London Mulligan really encourages that kind of similar pattern so much as Dredge encourages that pattern. And in that scenario, like, I am all for like a ban on something in Dredge. I hate the Dredge mechanic. I think that it is just a type of magic that just should not exist because it's so different from every other type of magic that exists. I don't know. It's a mechanic that I've literally always hated. So.
Not exactly utilized in the way it was intended.
Oh yeah, it was intended to just have like, oh, I get to play this card over and over again, and sometimes I get to hit this creature that's pretty good in the graveyard, and instead it's literally just turbo through your deck, mill 47 cards in one turn, and then combo kill your opponent with Conflagrate.
It was supposed to be this like late game mechanic where you're like, oh man, I really want to draw this kind of card. Yeah.
Oh, I want to draw a spell so bad.
Yeah.
If every card that was Dredge was literally just Dredge 1, I think it would have fixed a lot of these problems.
Even if every card was Dredge 3. It was the issue has been the cards that are Dredge 5 and 6.
Yeah.
Like this deck would not exist without Stinkweed Imp.
It would be close, actually. I mean, Stinkweed Imp is good, right? If you're hitting a bunch of cards, but the engine of Life from the Loam and Conflagrate is really strong. So strong that you choose to play fewer copies of Golgari Thug over Life from the Loam, even though it has less Dredge.
There's also the synergy with Bloodghast, which I think is a bigger, more important than that with Conflagrate these days.
Life from the Loam is one of the few Dredge cards that actually has like viability when casting, and you want to play 4 even though it doesn't Dredge as much, so it kind of breaks the mold. But if all the cards that had Dredge on them you wanted to cast them, we'd just it'd be a different story altogether, so maybe they ban a bunch of those bad Dredge cards, and then in Modern Horizons they give us like shock with Dredge. Like, how cool would that be? Dredge 1 shock.
We already have Dark Blast. How much more do you need?
Okay. All right. Any questions before we take our break for the second video?
One thing to show you real quick.
All right.
We have another Photoshop.
Oh, that's Taylor, I bet, huh?
Yes, that is.
Okay, that's pretty good.
That equation there doesn't make a lot of sense. There's like A's on one side and Y's on the other.
Hey, math guy. It's a meme. Memes aren't supposed to make sense.
One real question first.
All right.
For Pyrotechnic, they were wondering, why do you think the colored Eldrazi decks, Bant and Red Green, have dropped off so much, and Colorless is all we see now?
Well, Chalice of the Void is a big reason and a big payoff for being Colorless and a very well positioned card right now. So that would be the biggest reason.
I mean, I think another reason is that very few people actually play the deck, and the people that do play the deck just kind of do whatever they want. I know Travis Gibson adheres to no man. Like I honestly, when I was playing this deck, I was like, man, this deck should just be playing greens for Ancient Stirrings, and Chalice of the Void sucks, and Simian Spirit Guide's not good, and yada yada. All these things were going through my head, but then I was like, well, Travis plays the deck a lot. He's probably really right, and Chalice is really good in a lot of the matchups, and
when I think about playing against Colorless Eldrazi with Izzet Phoenix, I am frightened. The deck is a virtual nightmare.
Yeah, with the 4 Dismember specifically, taking out Thing in the Ice, huge deal. Warping Well, even out of the sideboard's pretty good against Thing in the Ice, which is nice.
When I think about playing against Bant Eldrazi, I'm a lot happier. My gut shots are better. My lightning bolts are better. They get to deal with Displacer. You still just have Path instead of Dismember. You have like one way to deal with Thing, but Things are even better because you don't have Chalice. So I get to dig through my deck and find my answers more effectively.
Long story short, the colorless version has draws which are primarily for Chalice of the Void. And Simian Spirit Guide allows for those kind of really fast starts. Serum Powder allows you to just have more long game card advantage with Scourge, Eternal Scourge, as well as just fixing better openers.
And then against heavy interaction decks, you have a bunch of utility lands. Like your Ghost Quarters can do things, your creature lands can do things.
Scavenger Ground's pretty good.
Yeah, Scavenger
Blue
Ground's
Moth, Mutavault.
Yeah, so you get a lot of value out of your mana base this way as well. And whereas the Bant deck doesn't get a lot of value out of its mana base, so it can flood more readily, especially if you answer their Displacers, and has to play a million colors. It's effectively a 4-color deck because you need specifically colorless mana. So there's a lot of inconsistency baked into that deck because of the way you're stressing the mana. And I've seen people move to like Selesnya or like cut one of those colors. They're usually Selesnya. And so they like cut what's the blue card? The 6-drop.
Yeah.
And to make the mana base a little bit better. So maybe that's a direction you can look in. But Chalice of the Void is just so powerful right now in Modern, better than it's been in 2 years or so since the heyday of Eldrazi-tron, which is another deck that might be really good right now for similar reasons. So that's really the big one. So consistency, Chalice of the Void, and you're not really losing much. You're losing like interaction with creature decks, which isn't as important.
Yep. All right. Well, we're going to take a short break here while we prepare for our second match, but don't go anywhere. We got more Versus Live coming up right after this.